Hey, Tim, how you doing? Huh. Oh,
Nope, I can hear you, Tom.
yeah, I can't hear Tim.
No.
I got to push that button to make myself
Oh,
heard.
now I hear him.
I'm on my phone. I can't get my computer to the tiny URL to work.
Huh. Hey, Davis.
Hey, how are y'all?
Hey, Davis.
Hey. Do you want me to try and resend it to you, Tim? Did you see that email that I sent out earlier? I can send you the full link, not the tiny URL, if that'd be helpful.
No, because I can't get my emails on my home computer that way. I only get my MUD emails on my phone.
Gotcha.
Oh, but forward it to yourself, because that's what I do on my laptop. Just forward it to your home email.
Okay.
So tell us a good joke or something.
I had a colonoscopy today.
Oh, that's TMI.
Well,
rough day.
Yeah, it has been a rough day.
That doesn't sound like a joke, though.
Well, I figured I'd get everybody laughing. So.
Yeah. I think I agree with Julie.
Yeah.
There's Lauren.
How are y'all?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Davis, I haven't gotten it. If you resend it.
I'll tell you what, Tim, for whatever reason, every time I try and click on it, it just does not want to cooperate with me while I have this session open.
It's this high-tech world we have.
I'm going to get it figured out, though, I promise.
Okay, no problem.
One more. Here we
Can I
go.
forward my copy to him?
I got it. I think I got
the
it
one
here.
you got
Here we
was
go.
the executive session, Tom.
Just sent it, Tim.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I think we got Dee and Paul on.
I got it, Davis.
Yep, I'm here.
Me too.
Perfect.
I like your ceiling, Tim.
You like that? Pretty clever.
It's a good color. Good color there.
You see the new
You already started your recording, huh?
Yes, sir. If I don't go ahead and start it, I'll forget. Truthfully, we always start talking, and it is easy to forget to get it started. So have a habit of just going ahead and turning it on. So
You mean you can't just hit rewind?
that's right.
You're right.
That's not
exactly.
that's not an option. So don't tell any inappropriate jokes or anything like that.
Yeah, we'll have to quit that now, huh? Ah. So what I do? We don't have public comments on tonight's agenda, do we?
We don't, but we can absolutely receive public comment if there's an item that y'all would like to receive public comment on.
Now, I just looking at what we had on the agenda. Looks like a short agenda, but a lot of stuff in the package.
Yeah. Well, these couple items, figured there'd be a fair amount of discussion, and so just wanted to. Whole purpose of the special meeting was just to address the bond election and have that discussion and then also
I
to
tell you, I honestly have a concern no matter which way it goes. We're going down the same road we did the last time, having to have a special meeting to get the order in time for the speaker and the speaker.
Oh, Tim, you're on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know.
Who's got the pig by the tail?
that's Tim.
No, not me.
Oh, I guess you let him go, huh?
Can you hear me on the phone?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep, we got you.
Okay.
Here, what I said is that we're going down that same road of having to have a special meeting in order to get something done in time to get on the ballot. And that's what we did last time that got us in trouble, I think, or part of it.
I think there's probably some truth to that, although I'll say I think we've had some discussion about the capital improvements plan. I think every single meeting since the last election. So hopefully that's not quite as large of a concern. Getting a little bit of feedback.
Is it still me?
It's not you. I know who it is though. I'm about to mute him.
Is that better?
Oh, no. Oh, perfect. No, you're good. Thanks, Tim.
Can't get this thing to work right.
Can I ask who just joined on the phone,
Sam.
please?
Hey, Davis, this is Richard. I just came on.
Hey, Richard. I thought that might be you. I see we have
That's
Gerard
me.
and Philip Gibbons.
Can you hear me?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Yes.
Got you, Taylor.
Perfect.
I don't think they can hear me. I don't know what to do.
Do we know if Mark's going to join us tonight, or? I know.
He gave
Didn't
me
he
the
say?
impression that he would.
I was gonna say I thought he had last week, last month? Didn't he say he had training or something? And
I believe that's right, Julie.
Can you hear me?
Right.
Julie,
yes.
you can hear me?
Uh-huh.
I can't hear anybody else.
Can you hear me?
We can all hear you.
I'm
Can you
hearing
hear?
Loud and
everybody
clear.
so far.
Just stop.
I know Mark said he wouldn't know his schedule until kind of the day of or day before or something. So
I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear us, Tim? No,
Apparently
Tim
not.
can't
Tim, can
hear
you
us.
hear me?
So mute yourself on the computer and call in on the phone. How about that?
Hi, Carl. Come listen to this.
As soon as we'll get started as soon as we get Tim situated here. Can you hear us yet, Tim? No. I think we just lost Tim.
Guess he's coming back on the phone.
Okay.
I thought he's going up there.
There he is.
You there? Can you hear us? He's still not here.
Buddy. I'm just going to do it on the phone.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh. I guess he's going to call back in.
Judy Gilmore,
Mhm.
John Banner,
And
Vanderbilt.
he's a guest because he was on the board. I guess.
Can we ask the general public to mute yourself until we get to the public comments, please? Thank you. Okay. As soon as we get Tim back in here, we'll.
Can I ask who just joined the call?
Robert McElroy.
Hi, Robert. And we also just had someone call in on the phone.
Yeah, I called in on the phone. I don't have a microphone on my computer, so that's why I'm
Okay.
using both.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, let me see where Tim went.
Jamie Beck's here too. I came in a second ago, but you guys were talking, so I didn't interrupt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Welcome.
But we're going to wait a minute because we were having one of the board members was having some technical difficulties a second ago.
Hello. Can I ask who just joined? Can I ask who just joined the call?
This is Philip Gibbons.
Hi, Philip.
Hello.
All right. Well, I don't know where Tim's gone to, so I'm going to go ahead and get started for tonight. So I'm going to.
Richard on?
Yeah, Richard's on.
Yep,
You,
I'm here, Tom.
Gerard, and Richard. So I'm going to call to order the meeting of the River Plantation Municipal District at 6:35 p.m. on August 5th. This is a special meeting called to discuss the bond election and some just a short business meeting, and then we'll have our regularly scheduled meeting August 23rd, I think it is, something like that. So basically what we're going to discuss tonight is a bond meeting. So I'd like to kind of take it out of order unless somebody has an objection. I'd like to go ahead and get the executive session out of the way so that we can come back and discuss the bond and decide what we want to do instead of having everybody stick around for the whole meeting. So we good with that? Any objections? Can you all hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
That's fine with
Yes,
me.
ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go into executive session, and I wouldn't assume it's going to take very long at all. So if the public wants to just hang for a few minutes, we'll be back, and we're going into executive session.
Julie, do you need me for executive session at all? This is Taylor.
I don't
think
know.
so,
I don't
Taylor.
know what we're discussing, but I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
So,
that's fine.
okay.
Okay.
Be right
All
back.
right. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Thanks.
Bonnie, are you there? Bonnie Busby?
Mic test. Turn camera on. Okay, so now it says it's on, but I still don't see nothing.
Anybody still on here?
Yes, Richard.
Oh, Mrs. Judge, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. I'm glad to see your group is back. At least Milton was out there yesterday.
Yep, they're all back. Thank God.
Hey, Richard, it's Taylor. All the plants operating okay?
Yeah, doing fine.
Good. That's good to hear.
Hey, Richard, this is Robert. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Hey, I got a question on that collection box out there. I understand y'all might be putting a fence up.
Yes, sir.
Can you look into, like what we have around the swimming pool, those the black partition, the fence rather than a chain link? Make it look decorative or nice for people that live around there? Look into a price on that.
I'll look at it, but I'll have to look at cost.
I know, but then again, we got neighbors there and people walk by there, and so that would really enhance it. I don't know it's that much more, but you might take a look at it because chain link's not cheap either nowadays. It's steel.
I think that's a good idea, Robert. I think we should make it look nice for sure.
Yeah.
If all fails, I know I just did a job where we did just kind of slats in the fence, and even though it's not great, it's still chain link. It does look better than just straight chain link.
Yeah, but there's a place up on 336 that they sell those partitions like that, and then they go in easy. But and anyway, that's my observation. And then you'll probably need to have a gate or an access, obviously, to get in for people either to cut the yard or get something out or whatever. But
no, I gotta have two accesses, one on each side, so I can get the track hose in there to clean it out.
Yeah, it seems like where you have that grade, the slope, that's where you have to get in at.
No, you got to get in both sides. You can only get part of it from there. You got to go from the back side too.
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean on the back side. I'm talking about the side that's back towards the house there. So, yeah. Anyway, that'll be good. Whatever works out. So at least to get it protected from anybody falling in that thing, because they'll never get out.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it tomorrow.
I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I mean, I think I saw it a while back when I was looking out, and that's definitely a good observation that it needs to be protected in some way.
Yeah, if it's a swimming pool, and that's worse, that's more dangerous than a swimming pool, in my opinion.
100%.
And there are regulations about what you have in way of fencing around a pool. And if it's a work environment, OSHA requires anything over 6 foot that there be a safety net there, protect somebody. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's good. It's been fortunate for the last 50 years. I know I was talking to a neighbor about it. And he says he was surprised that
other people want to call in and talk, Robert.
Well, they're in executive session. We're chit-chatting. Yeah, so anyway, he said he's surprised nobody's fallen in that thing yet. So.
No kidding. I mean, that's been open space for a long time. Nowadays it definitely doesn't fly.
Right, nowadays. Maybe back then it was all right.
I think people might have been a little wiser back then. That's the reality.
Well, somebody come running across that place in the middle of the night and not know it's there, they'll catch it now.
Oh yeah, especially with all the storms and everything, you don't want to get wrapped up, and that's the only way you can get out and hit that ditch. So
oh yeah,
we'll get it protected. I think that's a good decision.
I don't know if anyone else had anything to say, but yeah.
Hey, this is Jamie. I want to butt in for a second. Richard, how big of a section are you looking to try to fence?
Oh, it's not that big. It's roughly a 20 by 30. It's not a big area.
Okay, I was about to say I have some leftover wrought iron, and I'd be possibly willing to just donate it to the cause if y'all went with something similar.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and see what we got. We got some too.
Get out of my yard. But I think I've got three. I think I have 3 8-foot sections of it. But like I said, I don't know if it'd be something y'all be interested in. But y'all are welcome to it if y'all want it.
Thank you.
since you're there, Richard, I got a question before. There's on the golf course on Charleston. There's drainage between two courses. I guess course 1, hole 1, and hole 9. It's a long drainage ditch there, and I understand it used to be maintained. How does it contribute to the drainage in the neighborhood? I mean, obviously it's grown up pretty solid right now, but does it contribute? I noticed there's some culverts in there, like it's designed to do something. But do you know anything about it, Richard?
It's drainage for the golf course.
Yeah. Well, there's also that that I mentioned to you before. That's behind people's homes. It goes into a drainage ditch too. So that homeowners, some homeowners have cut it and others haven't. But is that for the golf course also?
Depends on where you're talking about.
Well, that area there north of, I was in your office. I mentioned it. It goes along the fence line from on the north side of Braxton Bragg, parallel to River Plantation Drive. It's right there where the fences are, where the people's fence is. But
I think that's street drainage, not the course drainage.
Oh, it's not on the street. It's on RPMUD property on the easement. So anyway. Taylor, do y'all have in your plans to do you were talking about a topographical study of this subdivision? Do y'all have that in your plans?
Topographical as in looking at the
drainage. Yeah, because not everybody has a ditch, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like where I live, we depend on the easement to some degree to get water out to Braxton Bragg from Natchez Park, because there's no storm drains on here. We just depend on water either percolating into the ground, or maybe some of it moves out moves out, you know, one way or the other. One way out through a water lot that I have next door to me, but it goes down the easement, and people put a fence up there, and then it blocks the water, you know. So that's the kind of stuff that I don't know if you have that in. There are other areas like that. I think that there's easements that depend on the drainage.
We don't have specific drainage studies in our plan, which is not something. I mean, it's definitely something we can incorporate with the funds that we're hoping are allocated towards the drainage system. We're mainly focused on the existing storm sewer, just making sure that water, once it hits the storm sewer, can travel to the ditches as fast as possible, which I think will alleviate some of those situations where people are having some backups. But if there's any specific areas, we certainly have the capabilities of analyzing those, kind of like we're doing Spring Holly. We can do it for relatively cheap because we're doing it in house. A large drainage study of that capacity would cost, 50, 60,000 if we were doing through an H&H. But since we have interior H&H, depending on the area that we're covering, it's usually only about 5,000 to 10,000.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. Well, one of the difficulties we have, and this is all over the place, Harris County, everywhere, is you doing these drainage studies kind of presents with the updated flows that we have to go into people's areas where we don't have easements to be able to establish better drainage. And so we get some resistance from people.
If there's a power line there, that's an easement.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if it's an easement, it's definitely a lot easier to be able to implement some benefits to residents. If it's not an easement, it's a little more difficult. But like I said, we can work through all those issues.
Yeah, when energy comes through here, everybody knows they're going to make their way through the property one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, no. Any sort of center point or pipelines, they seem to have different lawyers than we have.
Oh, Richard, the Well, the Woodland RV Park on Maplewood, its grand opening is August the 15th.
It is, huh?
Yeah, you Google the Woodlands RV Park. Someone mentioned they may be putting tiny homes in there or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's only got driveways in there. That's all he's got.
Oh, he's got electricity. Oh, he had temporary box put in there, 200 amp circuits.
Yep.
So, did they get permits from the county to get their water connection and sewer connection too?
They don't need a permit for water and sewer.
They don't? Okay, so that's why because there was someone around there that was investigating that and said they never could find the permit. So, I didn't think so either.
They need a permit to build there.
Yeah, they got that.
Who's going to issue the water and the sewerage?
RP. We've already got it set up.
Richard is going to have to issue it?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell the lady that RP was going to, MUD was going to issue it? Sign off on it.
I have another question about down there. Is there a plan to put in a fire hydrant for those people, or are they close enough to a fire hydrant they don't have a problem there?
There's one right at the end of the block there.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Hey, Richard, I went out and I've got two 8-foot sections and a 6-foot section, and I've got three of the posts to hold it up that it just gets welded to.
Oh, okay.
Y'all's number, the one that I think it ends in 41, can I send a text to that, or is that the office number?
No, that's just the office number.
Okay.
What's your address there? I'll come and look at them tomorrow.
556 Beauregard.
Beauregard. Okay.
Yep, I'll be here. I work from home, so just holler at me and I'll open up the back gate.
Okay. I'll do that.
Well, another question, have y'all heard anything about cutting a new road for Mosswood so they can get out in case of rain and all that, flooding, and that bridge goes out? Taylor or Richard, y'all hear anything, if anything's been planned yet?
Not me.
I have not heard anything about that.
Yeah, when Stewart Creek floods and they can't get out, they'll take a right turn right there at the at water plant number 3, I guess it is, and then cut across go down around the golf course and come out on Terra Park, get on River Plantation Drive so they can get out. So.
I mentioned that years ago and nobody ever paid attention.
Yeah. We've had 2 or 3 storms. I know they've shut them in. It looks like they're coming back.
I am back. Where's the rest of them?
I don't know. Got a couple. I'm sure they'll be here in a second.
Oh, there's Davis.
See, Julie, Gerard, you're here, Tom.
You think we need to call Tim again?
Well, I certainly can.
I already texted him and gave him the codes and everything. He never responded.
Yeah, he was having trouble getting in.
Yes, the bottom line is don't go to the doctor when you have a meeting this evening.
Oh, Lauren's back. Yeah, okay.
I'd say Davis, give him a call again.
Yeah, I'll give him a call.
Yeah.
4.
Hello.
Hey, Tim. All right. I think we're ready to get started.
Okay.
All right. Tim's here. Finally. Okay.
All right. River Plantation MUD Board of Directors has come out of executive session and we're coming back into open session. So do I have anybody that wants to make a motion that we need to vote on?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the settlement on the Charleston property and we authorize the president to implement any actions necessary to complete it.
Okay. All in favor?
Don't you need a second?
I second.
Oh, I need a second. Thank you. All in favor?
10 seconds.
Tom, aye.
Tim, I.
Gerard, aye.
Julie, aye. Okay. By a vote of 4-0, that vote passes. Okay. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is to consider the water and sewer drainage bond election. I think we have 2 proposals for different, 2 proposals than the engineer's proposal. So for the projection, so somebody want to start first and explain theirs, and or do we need? Yeah, go ahead. So who wants to start first to explain theirs or give their reasons for their recommendations? Or
Well, this is Tim. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'll start with mine. Mine was not a dead set number. I know it says it's like 7.512 million or something like that. That was not a dead set number. It needs to go up. And I was just using a lot of that stuff as an example based on the engineer's study that went on and his list of projects that need to be done. We could actually spend between 12 and 15 million, but I started it at 7.5. It's going to take a few years to get done, and we need to at least get started on something. So that's the long and short of my presentation there. I'm sure
Okay.
y'all saw it. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of explanation for what everything's going to cost, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to ask Tim any questions or anything? So
Yeah,
Tim, I have a,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Well, I have a question. So that was a
Yeah.
6-year, was it a 6-year
Yeah.
projection? Okay.
Yeah.
So around year 4 or 5, you're going to go back for another bond election?
I think we would probably have to, unless this one is increased before we ever put it on before the voters. I know that we've got to decide something tonight. We've got to
Right.
get it. We've got to get it. But we've got to be able to have some kind of money going for the next 4 or 5 years, or else we're done. I mean, we're just going to keep spinning in circles.
Okay.
I gotta have a question. Do the people that are joining us, do they have access to this proposal?
It was given out as part of the agenda for tonight. Yes.
Okay. Do they know which one we're talking about right now?
This was, well, I don't know. Yeah. This was the one that was, it's titled River Plantation Municipal Utility District 2021 Bond Election, November 2nd, 2021. And it was 7 point, was it? Hang on. I don't want to quote you wrong, Tim.
It's
7.51 or something like that.
Yeah.
7,518,000
Okay.
is what he has on the total sheet.
Okay.
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 That's right.
I guess my comment would be, I like where it's going. I'd like to see the storm drains moved up more than 2023, 2024, if at all possible, to get them done quicker.
I'm fine with that. Fine with that.
The other thing is, though, we were talking in 6, 7 years before, we were going to need what, close to 16 million to do the capital improvement plan. So that means this is really only half of what we thought we were going to need in 6 years. So I'm
Correct.
thinking that if we're going to do something like this, we might want to look at increasing that a little bit, just for the insurance factor, if nothing else, because there's no interest on any money that's not monetized.
Right.
You're right. You're exactly right. And actually, when I was working with Taylor on this, Taylor said, we can adjust when you do the sewage, when you do the drainage, when you do any of this stuff. He said, we can have trucks running out of RP every day doing something construction wise.
Yeah,
don't worry
that's what
about
we
that.
need. I might be the only one, but I think the storm drains have to be one of our top priorities.
Tom,
Well,
I agree with you, and actually in my presentation, I'll touch on that a little bit, and I can touch on some alternatives to additional bonds that may be needed in the future.
Well, and can I make a comment on Tim's thing? So, Tom, to address your issue, if you look at, Taylor had a list of assets in there and when they were placed in service and their estimated replacement date. And I believe Gerard's guy had one of the similar one in his packet. And if you'll notice, the majority of our assets were placed in service in the 60s. A little bit of it in the early 70s, which was Mosswood part. But of that storm sewer, talking about the sewer lines and things like that, the storm sewer, I did some calculations and we have 114,000 linear feet of sewer line in our district.
Storm sewer or
just sewer?
Sanitary
Yeah, storm sewer, sanitary sewer. We have 114,000 linear feet. Since 1966 that we know of, we have only CIPP'd 16,000 of that linear feet. That's like 14% of it. So more than 75% of it, more than 85% of it is more than 50 years old.
Yeah, we knew that all
We have a
along.
huge problem.
Yeah,
We have a huge
just so I've been talking to Richard, and it's probably a good time to talk about it. But you know, as I understand it, for CIPP and the pipe, the main part of that would be done would be the storm sewer, and it would really just be the mains. That's where we're having the problems with the sinkholes. And as I understand from Richard, and I'd certainly like to hear from Taylor as well, but as I understand from Richard, I mean, there's other parts of the storm that are concrete and really are not as much at risk as the CMPP pipes are, the metal pipes are.
Well, if you know that, because I talked to Richard this afternoon and he told me he replaced everything that was concrete.
So I
No,
think
Julie, that was sewer line, not storm sewer.
that was sanitary, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so I mean, what I've heard is there's, at least what, 3, 4, 5 different types of pipe we have. We have the CMPP, we have the concrete and storm, we have truss pipes. We used to have the concrete and clay pipes. Those have been replaced. What else do we have, Richard, Taylor? What am I leaving out?
That's about it.
Oh, we have brick and mortar manholes.
I would just say that let's not conflate. Like, if we're going to talk about storm sewer, let's talk about storm sewer and,
Right.
and sanitary to sanitary. So storm sewer, you have CMP and RCP. I will be honest. I don't know which is which as far as how the storm sewer is located and how much is RCP. I will say every manhole that I've pulled has been CGMP, which is corrugated metal pipe for everybody on the meeting. And then if we're talking about sanitary, you have vitrified clay pipe, and then you have also truss pipe. And there may be, I think Richard has replaced most of it, but there may be a few sections of asbestos concrete pipe from my knowledge. And that's just looking at existing plans that we've kind of scanned through and dug into to say what the materials were upon construction. So Richard's going to have better knowledge of that. So if he disagrees with me, that's fine. But just from the information that I have, that is what it is in the ground right now as far as sanitary pipe and storm pipe.
So
we just need to have sufficient funds that we can start CIP and corrections as soon as we can identify problems.
Yeah, Tom, and I think where we're having the problems, and Richard, I'm hoping you can speak up to this, where we've been having problems is with the CMP pipe, and that's where we've had the sinkholes. Or Taylor, can you confirm that?
So the problems that are appearing above surface are with the CMP pipes, I believe, as far as sinkholes go. Now I have not personally inspected every sinkhole, so I do not know the pipe existing below it. They don't seal the joints as well when it comes to storm sewer for CMP or CGMP. So joints become an issue when it comes to storm sewer. So that's what I'll say about with those measures. As far as sanitary goes, these are not always issues that you'll see right away. I will state that we did about 1,500 linear feet of storm sewer televised. And within that 1,500 feet, we saw one joint break of the truss pipe, a couple of obstructions in it, and then also some root infiltration, which means the pipe's cracked, and quite a bit of sags. So it just for more information.
If you were going to rank the priority or the risk, would you agree that the number one priority, the biggest risk, is with the CMP for the storm where the sinkholes are occurring?
Storm sewer is going to prevent with sinkholes typically, which are going to be a risk to somebody falling in and sort of that route. With sanitary, you aren't always going to see the issue before it happens, so it could appear at any time. It's hard to set a priority on the two because yes, sinkholes are going to appear, but if your sewage all of a sudden stops flowing down, like we had the two breaks here recently, and it starts backing up into your house, it's not something we're going to see above ground as far as a sinkhole. So it's very hard to say priority wise. Just because storm sewer presents a little faster than the sanitary does, it's very hard to say a priority of one versus the other.
Yeah, but there's another issue, I think, with the storm sewers. When we're pouring dirt in the sinkholes, we're slowing down the drainage, which means that we're increasing the potential of flooding somebody's house, and we don't want to do that.
So Tom, as I understand the process, where they've filled in those sinkholes in the process to CIPP them, the contractor will actually first come in and clean them out and remove any of that had filled into it, that fill that got into it. And then after they clean it out, they'll inspect it. They'll run a camera down it just to make sure there's no problems and the pipe can be CIPP'd. And then once they do that, then they go ahead and CIPP it. So
yeah, but
it
Gerard, that's when
out.
they've CIPP'd it. What about the areas they haven't CIPP'd that have been filled in?
So what I'm suggesting is that we spend or allocate 1.3 million to CIPP all of the CMP mains for the storm. Too many S's for the storm sewer. So we do all of it.
It's 1.3 million to do just to CIPP.
1.3 million for CIPP for all of the storm main drains. Correct. And that number came from Richard.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just curious what it. So that means this number that Tim's talking about may actually be light then.
I'll let Tim or somebody else comment on that. I'm just talking about my part.
So you're talking about, Gerard, yours, you want a $2 million bond. So
yeah, let me go through my presentation real quick. Why don't we do that? Davis, can you present that for me?
I can. I would have sworn that it was put up in the meeting packet.
It is in the meeting.
It is.
Okay, I'll just
Are y'all?
We got
yeah.
it.
Okay. Y'all all have it. Okay. Yep. Sorry, and I can see if I can.
Yeah, I'd really rather.
I can give you the ability to share it.
You should be able to share a single window.
Yeah, will it let you share your screen, Gerard?
No, I do not have any option to do sharing.
Okay, let me see if I can. I can change that. Just don't see that I do either.
Gerard, do you have the little square with an up arrow on? Oh, you don't have the.
No, I do not. No. I was looking for that.
That thing says open share tray, whatever that does.
Well, this one's a little bit open share tray.
That's what it says. That little square.
Sorry, Gerard.
Let me see what this is acting a little bit different. Let me see. Did that share it? Is that doing it?
Yep, got you. Yep.
There you go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Tom. So slide 1, just an introduction slide. This is just my opinion and my proposal. Let's see. Okay, so here's the first thing I've covered is just the different revenue options that we have. If I change that to my notes, can you guys still see the slide and not my notes?
I just see a black square in front of the slide.
Yeah, we can't see anything.
Okay, let me try. What happens now?
Now we see the screen.
You see the slide?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me try bouncing back and forth. Okay, so this is the revenue options. So with this, I need to change one more screen. Okay, so on the second slide, what I'm showing are the different types of revenues that we have. These are, the most common. There's probably some others that I don't know about, but
And Gerard, I'll just say when you got your screens blacked out, when you open those other two screens up,
okay.
there you go.
All right.
I'm so sorry to pop in, Gerard. If you unshare and then you reshare and you just select the screen that you're like the page that you're wanting to show us, it should pull that up, and then you should be able to pull your notes and everything. I can try to walk you through.
I'll try it again, but I did select that single screen. Teams is acting a little bit different than what I would normally see it act as.
Okay.
Gerard, I can share my screen. I've got it up on my screen if you want.
That would be much appreciated.
All right, give me 1 second and I'll do that.
While he's doing that, I have a question because this the first thing you got up there is the water and sewer increase rates.
Correct.
And those were earmarked as operating funds, and they were there to offset the deficit spending. I don't think they should be moved to capital improvements.
So we'll talk about that, okay?
And I don't think we're going to have a projected increase of 192,000 either.
Well,
Can you guys? We've already got that, and that's already approved.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, I see.
So you're guaranteeing me we're going to have 192,000 increase in revenues?
No, that was the projected amount. Tim, that was in your spreadsheet, correct? That was for the approval for the recent water and sewer rate increases?
Right. That. Remember, we had about a $16,000 a month deficit. If you divide that by 12, it's about $16,000 a month, which basically is the money that I thought was earmarked to offset the deficit, which means it should not be moved to capital improvements.
Oh, Tim, you on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So the projected additional revenue from the rate increases, 192, 103 is what I had. Is that about right? Is that what you had in your spreadsheet?
I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me, but it sounds that we were over 180. So it was 192.
That's the number I got when I subtracted it.
Okay.
So that's the three revenue options are water and sewer rates. That's the monthly bill that people pay, and basically we get 100% of that. And then you've got the M&O taxes. We basically get 100% of that. And then you've got municipal bond, and with that one we have to give up some money to interest and stuff. But as far as how those can be changed, the water and sewer rates, those can be changed by the MUD board, and that's what we just did, here a little over a month ago. And we're going to get an additional 192,103, and I've put that number into my projections on some of the graphs. Similarly, not exactly the same, but similarly, the M&O tax can be increased as well. It can be slightly increased without an election, but what we'll probably need is a lot more than a very small increase. So it would have to be done through an election, right?
Actually, Gerard, can I step in? Just to let you know, our M&O tax has to be reduced this year.
Yeah, I heard the actual number was going to be increased. The dollar amount would end up being
the dollar amount because the appraised values went up, but the tax rate has to be decreased.
Correct.
It's about a $50,000 difference.
The percentage has to be decreased, but the actual value is increased. Yes, I understand. I knew that. But I'm thinking we're probably going to need more along the lines of an increase of about the same as what we saw with the water and sewer rates. This is kind of what I've said all along. It's going to take several things in order to help us produce a budget to where we have sustainable operations. It's not just one thing.
And if I can add, just so everybody's clear, we would likely have to vote a higher authorized rate And then state law would also require us, because of if we wanted to immediately raise our rate more than the 3.5% cap that we live with right now, we would have to have another election. So you would be looking at two maintenance tax elections for a material rate increase in the short term.
Okay.
So we don't have to do anything for M&O now. It's already decided for us, huh?
No, you can raise the tax bill on the average homeowner by 3.5% now, and because of the increase in average appraised value, that's actually a lower tax rate than you have right now, but it's an increase in revenue. But if you wanted to exceed that 3.5%, you would have to get voter authorization to do that. It's an automatic election trigger.
Yeah, but the 3.5 is already, it's a set thing already. We don't have to do anything else.
No, sir. You still have to go and vote for a tax rate, and we'll discuss the tax rate at the August 26th meeting, and then we'll consider the adoption in September. But the expectation is, because of obviously revenue shortfall, that we'll probably be looking at at that kind of cap rate. That would be my guess. So
thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to outline the three different types and what would be needed in order to change them, and that's really kind of ties into the next slide. But I guess one final note is, in my projections, I do show that there would be $511,000 that comes back out of the court registry, and about $100,000 in legal fees. That those will both go back to the general operating fund, and we'll be able to use those in the relatively near term, hopefully within a year, to be able to augment our funding.
Where's the $100,000 in legal fees? Is that it at the county or what?
That'll come from the park bond, from the recreation bond. It was initially slated for park improvements. This is the one we talked about. Let's use the $100,000 in addition to the $511 for acquisition costs.
And I'm lost on that one, I have to be honest. I mean, is this a savings, or is this something that we have paid to Montgomery County, or what?
We would be reimbursing our operating account. So it's reimbursement from, it's not money that's sitting out there. When we would sell the bonds, we would reimburse the operating account for funds expended. If that makes sense.
Ah, okay. So basically we're taking it out of the bond money.
That's right.
Yeah, we're just reimbursing, monies that we've already taken out of the general operating fund. I think this year, Richard did a calculation, and as of last month, just this year, we had spent about $89,000 in legal fees. That doesn't count what we spent last year in legal fees and what we'll spend the rest of the year. So it's about $100,000.
Is that all on the Charleston?
That's my understanding. Yeah. He broke
Richard, that's all on Charleston?
I have to look at my sheet again that I broke that out on.
Is litigation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but that money goes back into the general fund, right?
It goes to the general operating fund. Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what the note's all about.
Yes, and if I could just say just a quick point of clarification, litigation involves, at least from our side of it, more than just the Charleston. There was a period there where we were getting on a regular basis a demand letter from the HOA for various things. There were other issues we were addressing, so that's in there. So that's all I wanted to clarify. Is it's not just Charleston. There were other issues in there in that attorney's fees item.
So, Paul, for 2020 and 2021, would it be safe to say that we've spent at least $100,000 on Charleston? I mean, I'm thinking it's probably quite a bit more than that. If you look at both.
Gerard, I feel safe saying that's probably accurate. Admittedly, I don't know. I haven't looked at the totals in a little while, but I think for over a 2-year period, that's probably accurate. It's certainly not too far off.
Okay. Yeah, this is just for projections, Tom. I just take that number and I project it into the 2021, 2022 budget is where you'll see that.
I just didn't recognize the number from anywhere, and I was wondering how I missed that.
Yeah. Okay. Taylor, next slide, please, sir. So the next slide just shows how efficient the different types of revenues are or inefficient. So the first two represent if we get money from bonds, and really the efficiencies are values. We're talking 25 or 30 cents of value, the actual work that we're paying for coming out of every dollar we spend. So they're really, there's a lot of overhead in interest, and even legal fees are a little bit higher, and engineering, everything has to be engineered in those models. But
Gerard, is that the market rate of bonds? And maybe I need to ask Lauren that question.
So I think it was 5.5%.
Let me ask Lauren. Lauren, is that the market rate for what our bonds would go for?
It's not. If you were selling today,
Okay.
I prepared some schedules, I think in April, trying to forecast approximately a year in advance. And you all have heard me say this before. I try to be conservative in my assumptions, to say the least. But, since I prepared those schedules in April, interest rates have remained low. Demand for municipal paper has remained high. And I would also describe your time horizon as shorter at this point. At least that's my understanding. I think we're looking at less than a year now from, today until the bonds would potentially be closed. So I don't know if this is helpful or not, but we had a bond sale on Tuesday, 29-year debt. This is a district that was rated. So they carried an investment grade rating from Moody's, the lowest investment grade rating that Moody's has, Baa3, which is kind of equivalent to BBB-. And they achieved a rate below 2.5%. So your district is different from that one. I don't think, and of course, again, that's the interest rate market today. That's the interest rate market this week. You're not selling bonds this week. And you guys have heard me say this before. It's the trap of my position for when folks ask me, well, Lauren, what interest rate are we going to get when we sell our bonds in February or March? So I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful or if that answers your question.
But so 5% is possible, but it's high right now.
I think that's unlikely. Even okay. If I my sort of conservative view today for your district, selling bonds several months in the future, you probably would be below 4%, might be lower than that. But, if I was conservative, I would maybe say 4.5,
But Lauren, so I had to have a number to work with, and I'm not going to second guess your numbers. The numbers that that were formally published as part of the engineering report was 5%, correct?
Yes, sir. 5.5.
5.5, right.
And that, that included a 2026 issuance and a 20,
I'm trying to simplify it to compare it, because I don't want to argue over 0.5% here and there. You see that the interest is significant. That's the point, guys. We pay a lot of money in interest, whether it's 5.5%, 4.5%, 4%, whatever. The numbers I've worked with are the numbers that you guys gave me as a board. These are the numbers that were presented to the board. The 7% number, that's come up more recently, And I was hearing that realistically it could be 7% because we're unrated. We don't even have an what do you call it, AAA minus. We're unrated, guys. And so we don't really know what the interest rate's going to be, but interest is significant here. And you can see there's not a lot of value. Now, with that said, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a purpose for bonds. That's not what I'm saying. There is a reason to have bonds, and we certainly needed a bond for the park. We have to bite the bullet, and it's going to cost us some money. That's something that we really couldn't plan for in advance. And that was a significant cost. Legal expenses and acquisition costs are expensive. We couldn't plan for that. But my point here is where we can plan for things, we would like to, and we would like to plan on paying for things with taxes and the rates. So the M&O tax and the sewer and water rates that we get billed monthly, we don't pay any interest on that. So it's a very efficient spend. It's very strategic spend. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that plays, but I mean, my point here is where we can, we want to plan it. We want to pay for things with taxes and with money that we collect monthly rather than bonds, because they're just not efficient. They're expensive. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So here I went back to the annual audit reports and just kind of pulled the end of year cash balance back since 2005. And what I'd like you to see here is how cyclical this is. So at the end of the year, what we're looking at is here's the investments in cash that we have. You know, some of the investments are in CDs, but basically this is kind of the bottom line of the money that we have to pay for operating expenses and capital expenses. And it's a natural cycle here where you save and then you spend, and you'll see more about the cycle in the next slide. But you can clearly see a cycle. You save, then you have a period where you have to spend, and then you start saving again, right? And so the green that I have is projected. You know, there's a lot of questions about that. There's no question. You know, this is based on what we've seen in the past. And it's going to be a little bit different going forward because we have aging infrastructure. We're going to have to deal with it. And I'll talk a little bit more later on a later slide about how we can possibly deal with that, getting a better projection of what it's going to be. Because I do think that our capital costs are going to be higher, which would drive that down if we left everything else unchanged.
So Gerard, I have a question for you. How are we going to get from end of year 2021 to, I don't know where that is, but I'm going to say about 600,000 to a 1.5 million end of 2022? How are we going to get a $900,000 increase in our cash when we're operating at deficit every year?
Basically from the low dot with 2021 up to the increase for 2022. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that. Well, the two main things. Okay, that's based on average of the past, the historical average. It's based on $611,000 coming in from the park bond, $511 from the court registry, $100,000 from legal fees, and $192,000 from the rate increases that have been projected.
Okay, but the rate increases are only going to cover our deficit in our operating expenses. We've tried to tell you that. Tom's brought that up twice now. Second of all,
I don't really agree with that or understand.
The reason our cash flow increased every year is because they didn't fix anything.
I understand. Let me get through the presentation, Julie. I'm gonna talk about that, and that's what I was just kind of alluding to, at least, you know, whenever I said, you know, this is the tough part where it's projected, and you know, if you just looked at it based on the historicals and what we know should be coming in, this is what you would see. But this isn't, you know, the picture isn't quite this rosy because yes, we have aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced. I'm not arguing that. I understand that. The gist of it is I don't want to pay for that with bond money, which is very expensive and very inefficient. I would rather plan for it and budget appropriately using tax money, the M&O taxes, and using the sewer and water rates. And that's where I'm going with this. But just
So
Yeah, Lauren.
Davis, how if we were going to have an election for an M&O increase, how long could we do that in November? Would we have to do that in May? And have you seen any of those
Julie,
pass?
without getting into those details, let me try to address that. I think I know where you're going. If I'm not, we can come back to the details.
If you're
But
talking
I
about
know
it, it's
that it's
important
going
that
to
we know
take
the
time.
details.
I know that it's going to take time in order to get the M&O taxes increased. Clearly understand that. I think it's probably going to take
So
a year.
now you're telling me as a board member, I can't ask a question? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm asking you to respectfully let me get through this slide pack before you start asking questions, because I think I have the questions answered for you.
Okay.
I think Lauren had a question.
No, you're not allowed to ask a question, Tom. You got to let him get through it.
No, Lauren did, not me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, for everybody, just please hold it to the end till I get through. Okay. I spent a lot of time, and I do like to go through. I think it's a lot better if I just finish the presentation. I'll be glad to answer the questions.
Just remember that in the future when you interrupt someone else's presentation.
Sure, Julie. No problem. And let's make sure we get follow the Robert's Rules of Orders in the meetings completely.
We got it.
Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. So this slide really has two elements to it. The top of it is our expenses, and the bottom part of it is around revenues. So in the top part with the blue, that's operating expenses. These are things that are predictable. These are payroll, for instance, for district employees, for insurance for district employees, just for electricity, those kinds of operating expenses. In the red, you have capital expenses. These are things that don't occur regularly, and you can't always predict them. I'll drill down into that more in the next slide. You can certainly see a big spike in 2020, 2021. I'll try to explain some of that. But from a capital perspective, you can see the difference between operating and capital expenses here. Down at the bottom, it really kind of mirrors what you're seeing with expenses. Thank you, Taylor. In the blue, these are your revenues that run every year, and some of that you have that's in excess. So that's revenues that are above your expenses. And sometimes you'll go into the red, and that's where expenses have exceeded the revenues. So it's just reinforcing the element above as well as the previous slide. So over time, this is showing that you have revenues, you save, and then sometimes you have to spend. And sometimes it's unpredictable. You can't always project. Although we want to try to do it, and we want to try to do it better, but you can't always project everything that's going to happen. Okay, next slide, please. So this is one of the most important slides. So again, you see the operating expenses and the capital expenses, or the capital outlay. And what I've tried to show is, first of all, some of the significant spends that we have had in the past. So this goes back to around the 2009 time period. You have WTP well number 3, where there was a $785,000 expense. There was a $500,000 belt press expense. The sanitary sewer mains have already been CIPP'd, and that was done back in around 2011, almost $250,000 there. So these are things that we've already seen. There was another about $500,000, I believe it was in sewer main CIPP in 2017 again. This year we got hit really hard with 3 big expenses. and this is in the 2020, 2021 time period, where there was $1.5 million basically spent with WTP number 2. The aeration tanks had to be redone, 669,000 there, and another 511 in courts registry for the park. And you can also see that the operating costs were up, and that's where your legal costs are as well. But the big question is, what do we do going forward? You know, what is the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years look like for the district? What is our strategic plan? So yeah, we probably do need to spend every bit of that, you know, 15 million. I mean, I'm not arguing the details of it. I'm just saying in general, we know that we've got a lot of money that we're going to have to spend over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. It's just, how do we spend it? How do we do it efficiently? How do we do it in a way that benefits the district? And that's the real question. You know, if you go do it with bonds, again, the value, you're 30, 40 cents on the dollar. So it's really expensive money. Or if we can possibly do it with M&O taxes and with rates, it's more efficient. And that's my main point. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So I have a couple of excerpts here. The first one here is from the EPA. They have different levels. It's basically a capability maturity model. And so this is just level 1, step 1. And what they recommend is that you have a plan, right? A capital plan. And you identify your high priority and your short-term needs. And I'll just, you know, kind of foreshadow, this is where I think the $2 million comes in. The things that we just can't ignore. CIPPing the storm main drains, for instance. I've got the list on the next slide. But that needs to be done. It needs to be, it's a couple slides down, Taylor. It's okay. Not quite finished with this one yet. But we also look at the life cycle costs in detail is the way that I read that. And so there's 2 ways that you know, you fund that. So one is through reserve fund accounts, basically savings accounts for different types of expenses, operating expenses and capital expenses. I mean, the other way, if you don't save the money, then you end up having to acquire debt, which is what they refer to here, second bullet, which, you know, is just not efficient. It's just we don't get our value out of that, and that's, you know, over the mid to long term. That's probably the two big points here. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, and this is just, we'll go through this one really quickly. This just is for nonprofits, and AICPA is recommending that you have policies around operating and capital budgeting. So you have you basically do planning around those. Okay, let's go to the last slide, I believe. So here's my recommendation. With the bond money, that expensive money, fund only the urgent, the high priority, the short-term projects with that $2 million bond. We need to do those things. It's going to, you know, take too long for us to save up with rates and with taxes in order to be able to take care of these. These are pretty big ticket items, and I don't think we can wait. So unfortunately, I think I have to recommend that, yeah, we go with bond money to take care of that. And this is where I recommend we do the storm sewer mains. And this was, you know, the cause of the sinkholes is what everybody's told me, and I've been told it's about 1.3 million. Also understand that there's a recoding that needs to be done. I think all of these actually are in Tim's proposal and Taylor's proposal as well. I mean, it's a small subset, but none of these I don't think are out of left field. I think these are all there, just a subset. So the next one is to rehab the east ditch. And the reason I think this is a priority is because most of that's going to be paid by FEMA. we get the work done, FEMA pays us back. So let's make sure that we go ahead and fund that, start getting that work done, getting that ditch rehabbed, and get the FEMA money that's sitting out there. The last one is a lift station relocation. I understand there's like a temporary, I think it's called a grinder pump that's actually on an owner's property today, and it was a temporary fix to an unfortunate problem, but we can fix that about 150,000. So those are the things that I think need to be done through the bond. Those are urgent, high priority things. I'd look through the others. Gosh, guys, if there's anything else, that is going to, have an immediate impact on our system capabilities, if we don't fund them, then let me know. And because I'm not aware of any. I mean, there's some things that we definitely like to do, but for instance, I'll call it an upgrade of the electrical panels and the control buildings, right? We're still going to be more than likely running next year, even if we don't go in and replace the old electromechanical breakers and such with new digital things and put in new buildings. We're running today. There's no reason to believe we're not going to be running tomorrow. But there are upgrades that are needed over time to strategically address these issues. And I think that those need to be done. It's just when you do them and how do you pay for them. And that's why I'd like to see them done in annual budgets where we're a lot more efficient. But I'd like to do it very strategically. So how do we do that? So we've got the 2021, 2022 cycle coming up for budgeting. I think we, kind of alluded to that earlier. And in that, I would like us to look at an asset management program in order to really confirm the numbers that are coming out of the CIPP, because I think they're, it's a lot of money, guys. And so I'd like to confirm that. Most of that work would actually be done by Richard. Richard would need to plug a lot of information about all of the different infrastructure into a spreadsheet, and then it would be analyzed. And the outcome, as I understand it, would be, it would tell us, what exactly needs to be replaced and when, as best we can estimate. Based on experience from the industry, based on industry's mean time between failure and things like that. So out of the asset management plan, it should tell you how much you need in operating reserves and capital reserves on a yearly basis. And then once you know what you need, then you can come back and figure out how to pay for it with your M&O tax and your rates. I have, let me back up. So Richard introduced me to Philip Givens, and Philip specializes in asset management planning and a number of things, but he's well versed in asset management. And that's why I've asked him to attend, and maybe he can just give a better explanation than I gave about asset management and how it plays into planning and budgeting. Just very briefly, I'm hoping that we can very quickly build some of that into our 2021, 2022 planning. But Philip, are you on the line? Can you come off mute and maybe say a few words to describe asset management? Is that okay, Davis, if he does that?
It's up to the board. It's whatever the board's preference is.
Gerard, I would prefer that since it wasn't on the agenda, we do this at a meeting when you can put it on the agenda. But
okay,
it's up to the other board members too. I'm only one vote on the board.
Well, I thought our engineers had done a fairly good job of laying out the 10-year CI, their capital improvement plan. I'm not sure where we're going with this, but Gerard, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. Overall, it informative. I agree with most of it. Some of it was quite rudimentary, but hopefully now you can understand why we're saying if you get a bond for more than $2 million, you don't have to monetize it. You keep it there and it's not costing you anything. When you keep going back for new bond elections, you spend $15,000 or more each time.
Well, that's why you go ahead and you do the strategic planning, and you really should only have to do this, hopefully, ideally one time. You wouldn't have to go back multiple times. That's where the asset management planning comes in, and it helps you predict that over time.
Yeah, but it doesn't cost you anything if you don't sell the bond.
Gerard, can I ask are you finished yet, or
yeah,
are you still in the middle?
I'm done with, yeah, please
Okay.
feel free to ask questions. Davis,
can I ask you questions? The M&O election.
Sure. And,
okay.
and Taylor, you mind, is it okay if we take the screen down so we can see each other again? Taylor?
I know if he's like me, he has lots of screens open. Has to find the right screen, move the mouse in the right place to close it.
No, all good. Yeah, go ahead, Julie. Julie?
Sorry about that. I'm muted.
Yeah, no
the M&O election tax increase. Yep. Cost, it would have to be a regular election. What other costs would we have associated with that?
You'd have, you'd have 2 elections. And so you'd have your, and that's assuming that you tried to be as efficient with it as possible, right? That you raised it, first you got the authorization, and then you raised it to the kind of maximum rate that you would need. And it also assumes, those kind of consecutive successful elections.
Okay. So who authorizes that increase?
So the board would call the maintenance and operations tax election.
Okay.
And then when you adopt your tax rate, you would be required to call a November election. So you would adopt your rate, early in September. You have an earlier deadline if you're going to bust the cap. And then you would call that maintenance and operations tax election and then hold it in November. And approval would be required before you could actually levy that tax.
Okay.
And to be clear, that cap and that approval process applies to maintenance and operations taxes. It does not apply to debt service taxes. Those cannot be capped.
Got it. Okay. Hey, Taylor, are you still on here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So recoding well number 4. Well number 4 was just put online 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, maybe. So why are we having to recode it already?
So I have the liberty of going last, which means I've heard all the other information.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Well, number 4, I think he's referring to water plant number 2 recoding, which has been a while. I would interject into Gerard's plan that sanitary sewer needs to be a priority. We're going for authorization, and I think that needs to be in the forefront of everybody's mind. We're not going to spend bonds. What my proposal shows is the necessity for funds over the next, I predict about 10 years, and I really do believe that you guys have 10 years worth of work to do. But we're really projecting out for the future of the district. That's what me, Lauren, and Davis are looking at for the longevity of the district and the possibility of issues coming up. Gerard is not wrong. Bonds are expensive. They're a thing that you have to do to cover the district to make sure you stay in functionality. And they're not the greatest things in the world. I'll be honest with you. I would love to say that you guys could support everything that you have going on out of M&O and we wouldn't have to worry about this.
No, but it's kind of like a mortgage on your house. You didn't pay cash for your house. You probably had a mortgage on your house. And when you look at the amount of interest you paid on that,
it's not even like a mortgage on your house. What we're going towards is a pre-approval to spend money on your house. Meaning that if you go to a bank right now, regardless of what the money you make, the bank's going to come back to you and you could make $50,000 a year. And the bank's going to go, oh, you can afford a $400,000 house. It might not be financially smart to spend $400,000 on a house making $50,000 a year. But if you chose to do so, you could technically afford it. And bonds is a little more friendlier than that, saying that, over the next 30 years in which you need to expend these bonds or they get canceled, you're looking at what is the future of the district look like. You obviously have some immediate issues. Gerard picked up on those with storm sewer. I think sanitary sewer is a bigger issue than he picked up on, and it's just because it's a lot of things that you don't see above surface. You're going to get infiltration. It's going to put a heavier load on your wastewater treatment facility, and so I would emphasize things like that for sanitary sewer. Ideally, if we were working in a perfect world and everything went great, we would inspect the sanitary, we'd inspect the storm, and we would only sell, a $6, $7, $8 million bond, and we could get back to a par level over the next 5 years where you start making some M&O tax in which you can cover things projecting out the future. That's an ideal world. We certainly don't live in that. We certainly want to be in a position where we can cover you in case some major issues pop up. So, if you're looking at my report, I stayed consistent with my CIP plan over a 10-year period, and you're looking at about $14 million worth of work, and it projects out to about $17 million, $18 million worth of bond. That is just to cover you in the next 30 years. We have to project that out. I would love to say that in the next 8 to 10 years, you guys are in a healthy position. You don't have to sell 5 million or 10, even 10 million of those bonds. This is not the district trying to take out all this money. This is the district trying to put itself in a financially healthy position in which, no, they don't have to expend the money, but should a major thing happen in the next 20 to 30 years, like a well failure happen where you have to expend $2 million and you don't have an M&O working in your favor, that you're able to cover that to continue to be a healthy district that constantly feeds its constituents with water and sanitary sewer and storm sewer. So again, I have the benefit of going last just because I know what everybody said, but I'm just trying to look at it from a reasonable standpoint in which bond authorization is a function of being able to function as a studious district in which you can financially cover the needs of the district in an emergency period of time. You certainly have some issues that are a really high priority. Again, storm and sanitary are really high priority if you look at my list. And we obviously have to spread those out over a certain period of time because you just can't feasibly do those things within a 5-year period sometimes. But that's what we're trying to cover, and we're trying to cover you guys 30 years down the road. I hope to be the district engineer for 30 years. I hope if you guys aren't on the board for 30 years, I hope the next board is capable of expending sort of an issue where if something arises, that they have the financial capability of doing that. And so that's where my CIP plan, my priority list, and all those proposals come from, is that I can't just project out 2 years or 5 years. I want to look at you guys and keep you guys a healthy district for a long period of time. I'm young in my career. I've been in this area for 8 years. I hope to be in this area for another 30 to 40 years, and I hope you guys keep me on. But I want to make sure that we can continue to progress and rise to all the issues of a district that was really fully built out by the 1975. I think is the last time a subdivision was built. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with my stuff. I don't disagree with Gerard on what he's saying, but you really need to project it out into the full stance of what's coming in farther reaching futures that you need to be ready for.
Okay,
I
Julie.
I think that the point that the approaches are not mutually exclusive is a good one. And there's certainly nothing that would prohibit you from including a maintenance and operations tax increase on the ballot in November as well. We could absolutely come back and put that proposition on the ballot. I will tell you, just from my personal experience with a number of MUD districts, sometimes the idea of saving and budgeting for repairs and all of that is easier said than done, and things do come up, but that certainly doesn't mean that it's not something that is worth trying. But I think it is important that you have adequate authority to turn to in the event that it is not successful. So, Lauren,
I just wanted to add, I wanted to say, I think Taylor said it well, and I agree with Gerard and with Taylor. Borrowing money isn't free. There's an interest component. But I just thought I might add this little bit of perspective. You look back at interest rates for the last, 40, 50, 60 years. We are today at a time of historically low interest rates. And even if they were to go up, a full percent, even if here, or maybe if they went up 150 basis points before you sold your bonds, you would still be selling them at rates lower than they've been for decades. So I just thought I would add that.
Julie, can I say something? This is Dee.
Dee, can we finish on the board first and then we'll invite the public?
No, I would just like to say, because I have a question for you too, Gerard. Taylor, I definitely agree with you.
Davis, what's proper protocol in this? Should the public be invited for comment?
Yes, the public is invited.
Julie, if I can say, I think it might be good for us to kind of work through it all. We're almost 2 hours in. It's obviously an important topic of conversation. We have, I think we do need to hopefully come to some sort of mutual agreement amongst the board members here. And then we can certainly receive public comment anytime. Just because we have had, in the past, I think it would be a good idea. You're actually muted.
I would actually kind of prefer to hear the public comments at some point, because I don't want to run into the same problem we ran into last time, where the public says they weren't made aware and the public says they didn't know about this, and the public says we tried to hide it from them. I'd like to avoid that by letting them.
Julie,
it's a public meeting.
I would agree with that.
I'm just saying, I'd like to finish the board discussion before
Gerard,
we
could I finish my comment?
Yeah, thought you were through.
You just did it again. I would prefer, so that we don't run into this down the road.
Sure. Okay. I agree. It makes sense to kind of go through all the public comments and then come back.
The only thing I would say, is I recommend that we
limit it.
use the time limit.
Yeah, we limit it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to make this short. Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I do agree with Taylor. We need more money. I understand it's expensive, but nothing has been done for so darn long. And also, it was funny because just on next door today, Energy has been out here working in RP and people didn't have electricity because the lines are 54 years old. Every time they fix something, the next one cracks. And so I have another question for Gerard. He's proposing this $2 million bond. Does he know how much a bond election costs? And I'd like to hear the number.
Bond election cost, I believe, is $11,000.
That's for the election. You have an application, correct, Davis? An
No, the
application
question
fee
was,
when
what is the election cost?
No, the bond
Yeah, and
election.
I'd have to go back and look at the combined expenses. I think that I would have guessed that it would have been higher than that when you took. I think you paid about. I would guess it would be closer to 20, but I can't remember the all the costs associated with it.
Yeah. Plus you have the attorney's fees for it. Plus you have the advisor's fees for it, the engineer's fees for it. There, all those costs add up. So
yeah, and I think that's about what Montgomery County charged us just for the
oh yeah, just for the election. Correct.
kind of physical administration portion
correct.
of it. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not any of the documents or anything like that.
Right.
So
Dee, you still have 1 minute and 15 seconds. You got anything else?
No, I think I'm good. But yeah, I was looking at the total cost to do a bond election.
Okay.
Because otherwise elections are just 10 or 11,000. But bond elections with everything you've got to go through are awfully expensive and we don't want to be doing these every year.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay.
I agree, Dee.
Okay.
I agree.
You ready to reset the clock, Tom? Anybody else, anyone else from the public wanna?
This is Jamie Beck. I would like to ask a question.
Okay.
I believe this is going to be directed at Taylor, but if not, whoever it is. I am one of the ones that was asking a lot of questions for the last one. One thing that I still would like to see for this one before the vote comes to play. So like on our 10-year capital improvement plan, we have a lot of different phases in there. Phase 1 of this, phase 2 of that. I would like to see something that kind of tells the public what those phases consist of, not just the sanitary manhole rehabilitation phase 1, like actually let us know what it is. Is there any way we can get a list or a little bit better of a list than just those very broad labels?
Hey, Jamie, this is Taylor. So we broke up the phases, like let's just put, for instance, the sanitary sewer. I don't want to misquote myself, but if you look at the cost estimate, we're a couple $1 million in the sanitary sewer. And so we broke that up over a 7-phase item. And I think it's close to $2.5 million worth of sanitary sewer. It's hard to say what the actual phases will consist of without cleaning and televising the entire district. So the first year is cleaning and televising the entire district. And so what we're going to focus on in the first phase would be the most important sections. So for instance, if we clean and televise the entire district and we find that, let's just throw out a number, 25% of the district is an absolute failure. And I'm speaking in broad terms. The first 2 phases would focus on that 25% of absolute failure. So I can't allude to specific subdivisions in which we'd be working on. What I can say is that a lot of research, once we sell the bonds and have the money to thoroughly analyze it, then after that we would be able to partition out those phases into whether it be river plantation, all of section 1, or partially section 1, partially section 7. That's kind of how we would break it up. I understand the frustration of seeing multiple phases But we do that in terms of priority, not necessarily in terms of section individually, because we certainly have noted that in some of my older subdivisions, we'll televise and we'll see an area that's 60 years old is in still perfect condition, but an area 20 years old is failing rapidly. And it just has to do with the soils and the conditions in which that particular utility has been under in that time period.
Okay, so we would expect to see like more of an itemized list in the future than after the election.
Yes, absolutely. So after the election, once you authorize bonds, we would come back to the board and say, okay, the first bond is going to be $5 million. And what that consists of is this. And I can confidently say that you're going to have to expend those the first 2, possibly 3 phases on a district your age. So you're going to end up with the 327,000 that is the clean and televised to analyze all of it. And then we're going to go 450,000 on 3 sections, which is $1.5 million to expend those funds on the most prioritized issues. Once we've addressed those prioritized issues, there's a potential we could come back to the board in 5 years, let's say, after we finish all that work and say, okay, you're in a really healthy position. You've created enough M&O taxes. Let's get on a standard regulatory way of rehabbing the system in which we don't have to sell bonds anymore because your system is capable of containing itself for the next 10 years. But I can't know that information without thoroughly analyzing the entire system.
All right.
Exactly.
My time's definitely up because we've done a lot of talking, so I'm going to let it go. I appreciate you answering me, though. Thank you.
I've done a lot of talking, but if you have a secondary question, if the board's not opposed to it, I would definitely further your secondary follow-up question if you have one.
Well, it's just it's not really a secondary question. Like I said, I just kind of felt like there would be a little bit more information available. Background on me. My husband's an engineer. My stepmother works for the Army Corps of Engineers and has for over 30 years. So I'm not super new to this kind of thing, and I just expected a little bit more information available to the public about what we were planning on doing. But no,
I absolutely understand that concern. And people that are in the engineering industry understand if you've been into it a long time, if you worked with districts like RPMUD for a long time, if I'd have been here for a long time, this would be a completely different plan.
And that I can understand. I do understand that.
I will preface it that being new to the district, without proper televising of the sanitary and storm sewer system, it's really hard to know what's underground, and I have to do the best engineering judgment. And usually a district your age, anywhere from 60 to 70% of the district is going to have to be rehabbed on the sanitary sewer side of things.
Right. And the one thing I'll agree on is that we definitely have to get something done because like I haven't been here long, but I've been here long enough to understand that there's definitely a problem that we need to get fixed.
Correct.
And if I can add in Taylor's defense, in many cases, there is a 5 or 10 or 15 year televising job that you can look back to and say, here's where we were 5, 10, 15 years ago. None of that information exists.
Right.
And we don't have the money to go and do the cleaning and televising job before moving forward. And so what Taylor has done is gone out and done a visual manhole to manhole inspection and some, kind of limited televising and inspection, to make those assumptions. But that cleaning and televising money will have to be spent, anyway, no matter what. And then from there, we'll basically size the construction projects.
Absolutely.
Because the way this is phased in is we have to have the voted authorization. Then we can sell the bonds. But even after that, we still have the construction contract process, right? So it is a long and slow process, but there are checks on the actual work, along the way, if that makes sense.
It does, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to answer me. And I do completely understand, Taylor, you're new to the, like being new to the district. I get where you're coming from with it. So at this point, I think you deserve a break.
Well, I appreciate that.
Can I add to
point, I would
David's
just say,
hang on, Tom.
if we had historical knowledge, this would be a completely different conversation. We're really starting from square one for this district, and it, for lack of a better term, it sucks. You know, typically what engineers will really recommend is we do kind of a ongoing inspection of the system on a regular basis where we rotate through sections within the district, so that we can continue on a 5-year kind of CIP plan so that the district can prepare for. I'm working from square one, and I'm sure that your husband and your, I think you said mother-in-law, if I'm not mistaken, or your mother. Can kind of respect that, is that when you go on square one, you really want to get a full picture of what's going on prior to it. And that's where that item comes from. And when we're talking in terms of bond authorization, I don't sit here and say, oh, I want you guys to sell $15 million of work. I will be honest, I have no eggs in that basket. I want to do the work that's necessary for your district, and nothing more. But I want to make sure you guys are covered fully.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate y'all letting me have the extra time. I don't know how far over I went. Sorry.
All right. I think Tom had a comment.
Jamie, I had one more comment for you. If whatever the bond number is that we decide on, just because we get you to approve, let's say it's 10 million, doesn't mean we're going to go out and sell $10 million worth of bonds right now. We, according to the, Taylor's plan, we need approximately 6 million to do the first 4 years. So the others, you're not paying interest on until it is actually sold. You understand that too, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure, because a lot of people seem to think, and like in the last one, they were all out there telling we were going to have to pay all this interest and all this money for the entire time, and that was not true.
Right. No, I do definitely understand that. I think more so I think a lot of people were kind of worried about the idea that we would have that ability to open up all those bonds, you know, have the ability for it, I guess, is where they were all kind of coming from.
So Jamie, those bonds, before they have to be approved, not only do the engineers have to sign off on them, the attorneys have to sign off on it, but TCEQ has to approve the projects.
Okay, well, yeah, I didn't know that. Now that's good to know. That is good. That's good. That puts my mind at ease more. That there's
we have to have all the plans and specifications approved by the TCQ, and they have to sign off on the scope of work. And those funds are actually restricted to those projects. And if we even want to change, you know, moving what money from let's say a water plant project to a sewer plant project, we have to get the TCQ's approval to do that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Do we have anybody else that wants to make a comment?
Can I just make a quick one? I think Jamie might get more information from that 2618 link on the agenda. Okay. That gives you all the proposals and all the information from Taylor too.
I don't have the one that was available on the website. It was the proposal, but there wasn't any of the stuff that they were showing on the screen earlier. I don't have access to. I didn't see that.
Look on the agenda, and the link is on the agenda.
If somebody else will go click on that, because I'll on the I'll try that. I'll come back if I don't see it.
Okay.
I'll add it to I'll see if I can add it to the chat so everybody can see it.
Okay.
And Jamie, please also feel free to call or email me if you need additional information. I'm here to help you guys out to understand the process better. So whatever you guys need.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from the public? Robert, you got your hand up, I see.
Yes, I have a question with regards to what Jamie observed. There were two different versions, one on the website and one with a link, which document goes away tomorrow morning. Is there a reason why we have two different documents? We don't have the complete one on the website? And will we have it after we adjourn the meeting? Will you put it the complete document, the 111-page document on the website?
I'm gonna say it should be there, but I will also say we get charged per page that, if I'm not mistaken, we get charged per page that we post on the website, or that OffCinco has to post. And I believe it was 100 and some pages. So I have no idea what that bill would be. So Robert, if you could possibly go out to that other website and download it. I would
downloaded it.
appreciate
That's
that.
why I noticed the difference.
Okay.
I did download
Yeah.
it. I noticed. Just noticed, wondering why the difference, because that is misleading. Maybe there ought to be a statement there, because like I said, tomorrow it will be gone. That it goes away the day after the meeting, and after that you have to email Stephanie to get a copy if you miss it.
The agenda packet goes away tomorrow?
Yeah, it goes away. That's well, the first thing they do the next day is delete it off the packets. And now I know that the law firm has a website you can get the recording from as well, and you get that. But anyway, that's my observation.
Okay.
That's all I want to comment on. Thank you.
Well, I think we're going to discuss website hosts at the next meeting. So
I did find the link. I did find it, so now I have it. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who helped me get there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anyone else have any comments?
You opening that back up to the board, Julie, or just public?
Anybody?
Yeah, so I've got some questions still for Taylor related to his presentation. The first one's a remark. Taylor, don't forget that the electorate has already rejected a $25 million bond. So we do have that history, and we kind of know where they're coming from.
Gerard, can I make a comment on that?
No, let me finish with my other one, Julie, please. The question that I have, Taylor, is you were talking about the sanitary, and you think some of that or all of that is urgent and should be funded with the bond. Can you elaborate on specifically what you think needs to be done urgently within the next year, that, if we don't do it, there's a risk to the system, a serious system failure?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, we were able to televise about 1,500 linear feet, and as Julie said, there's 114,000 linear feet of line. So we legitimately analyzed about less than 1% of it. We saw within that a joint break, which is a pretty serious issue. We saw several root infiltrations and obstructions within that sanitary sewer that would allude to some legitimate issues within it. And so if you have to project out using 1% of the sanitary sewer, you find that many issues. And that was actually a newer section using mosswood, which was built in 73. You kind of project out that everything built in the 1960s is going to be as equivalent or somewhat worse off than that. You guys have had a lot of flooding in the past. Flooding puts a lot of moisture in the soils and causes it to shift. Conroe does have a fault line running through it as well. So with soil shifting and things like that, you're going to have a lot of offsets in sanitary. One of the things about sanitary sewer that people seem to misunderstand is when you put two pieces of pipe, regardless of how long between two manholes, you create two fixed points. When those fixed points start to shift, they cause issues in any sort of shift for soil fluctuations. Waterline doesn't have this issue because it's a continuous strain. And so as it shifts, it's able to continue because it's flexible within the ground versus the two fixed points that sanitary has. And so that would give me the illusion that sanitary is causing more issues. If you don't remember, shortly after the bond election, we had two sanitary line failures that we had to do immediate point repairs on. All this information was gathered, and looking in manholes and things like that, analyzing the state of pipes and when it needs to be replaced, that would give us the idea that 75% of the line probably needs some to be CIPP'd or fixed. And that's where the emergency or high priority comes in to address it.
And that's independent of the different types of pipe. You'll see those problems no matter what the pipe is throughout the entire system.
So in y'all's system, y'all have ABS truss pipe, asbestos concrete pipe, and vitrified clay pipe. Vitrified clay pipe, honestly, does have a lifespan of about 80 years if it didn't have any soil issues. That's the longest longevity that we have. Any sort of ABS truss pipe tends to break a lot sooner. It's just not as long lasting as a PVC. And then asbestos concrete, because of the fixed joints, does happen to shift more often than a PVC pipeliner. So looking at all three of those pipes and the longevity of it based off of standard engineering practices and the longevity of those pipes alludes again to the fact that there is a substantial amount of the sanitary underground that could possibly be failing. Again, that could rear its ugly head in backups into sanitary into people's houses and the overland flow of sewer.
Okay, so can you estimate the amount of clay pipe that we have?
Yeah, the only if you look at my subdivision breakdown, the only two sections that I believe had clay pipe from that, and let me pull it up just so I don't misquote myself. Give me 2 seconds.
Hey, Taylor, while you're pulling that up, I just wanted to let you know that that itemized list that you have in the document that I'm able to see now is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm glad I could help. I just passed it. Sorry. Yeah, so if you're looking at the subdivision breakdown, there's one section of vitrified clay, which is River Plantation Section 6, that we noted, and this was discussed with Richard on. Every other section with that sort of piping has been replaced with CIPP, I believe, and he can certainly jump in at any given time. That was put in 1974, and we do have a 40-year lifespan on that. I've seen it last as much as 80 years with historical data, but again, that's speculation, especially with the amount of flooding that you guys have had, which is going to cause a lot more soil shifting. And to your question, Gerard, you were asking for an estimate. It's probably 10 to 15% of the district.
And okay, so 10 to 15% is clay. You think
that would be my estimate. Okay,
and that's all I was looking for is an estimate. You know, I mean, if that's going to last 80 years, you know, is it 10 or 15% of it, or is it 80% of it? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of your district is either ABS concrete pipe or probably ABS with truss pipe, which we've not seen a good lifespan on. You know, hindsight 2020, I would say that it's not a good engineering practice. We certainly don't use it now, and we've seen a lot of failures due to excessive movement of it and cracking that the ABS truss pipe just couldn't withhold with the soil movements.
Okay, and you said 75% of it's probably going to need to be CIPP'd or fixed. Do you have a time frame for that? I mean, is that? I mean, again, I'm going to go back to, I think, of urgent things. Say within the next 2 years. We don't have that much risk in the next 2 years, right?
So if you're only looking at the next 2 years, if you'll look at my CIPP plan, I'm going to pull it up real quick.
I'm not really asking you what you put in the plan. I'm asking you about the risk. How much of our system is at risk to major system failure in the next 2 years?
So I'm gonna say that 2022 is the start of next year. 2023 being the next risk, at least phase 1, which is approximately 1/7 of the pipe, and then if you project out to 3 years, you're looking for 2/7 of the pipe is probably in a state in which major failure could occur where the district's battling a bunch of point repairs.
Okay. And so, given that, how much money would you recommend putting in your budget to address these urgent issues over the next 2 years?
If I was looking to sell a bond, I'm assuming you're talking about bond fundings, correct?
Yes, sir.
I would say a minimum of $5 million because that's covering the sanitary sewer, the storm sewer, and the other issues that you have going on.
Oh, okay. So that's sanitary and storm. Yeah, I'd already put like 1.3 in for the storm already. So I guess if you break that down, you'd be at 1.3 and 3.7.
So if you're just talking about sanitary, you're looking at approximately, because you do have some manholes that are going to get wrapped up in that. You're looking at about 2 million in sanitary and about a million, 1.3 million in storm sewer.
In the manholes, basically. Well,
The
where do the manholes fit in? I mean, so 1.3 for storm, okay. You've got 2 for sanitary. And
the 2 for sanitary included manholes, and I was saying that about $500,000 of that is manholes.
Okay, so the 2 million includes it, so 1.5 plus $500,000.
That's correct.
And how much risk is associated with those manholes? I understand that there's, infiltration into the system, but as I understand it, I mean, we have not experienced any non-compliance, even though we've had some infiltration whenever, you have the flooding.
You're never going to get non-compliance over infiltration. What we're looking at is actual sanitary line collapses and manhole collapses. Again, that's not going to be associated with a violation. It's going to be associated.
Ultimately, it will impact the operation of your wastewater treatment plant, right? I mean, it'll
correct.
increase the flows, and you'll have, you'll have discharge violations.
That's correct. I'm trying to talk to apples with Gerard, and if you're looking at just sanitary, infiltration is not going to affect the actual ability for the sanitary to function. What it's going to allude to is continued erosion and issues that are going to heighten the risk of failure. And so with both manholes and sanitary, you're looking at a failure percentage of, above 50% potential in those items.
Have we had any manholes collapse to date?
I don't believe you've had any sort of manhole collapses in which you would consider a collapse of it corroding into itself. What I would say is that when I inspected manholes, you had great backups in those manholes with bricks falling down into them. That leads me to assume that failures are potential.
We're already at 9 o'clock, guys. We've been at this 2.5 hours. Can we move this forward or?
Well, I wanted to finish my questions, Tom. I think,
I'm
asking some pretty specific ones.
Yeah, they're bearing. But
it's really just this one question that requires a pretty detailed answer, I think. Trying to understand what's recommended from a dollar perspective, and I guess what I'm hearing is really $2 million. And I think we're kind of getting to the end of this. For the sanitary that you're recommending, and you think that's for urgent, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely correct. I believe there is an urgency to it.
Okay, that's all the questions that I've got. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Gerard.
Okay, I just want to make 2 comments on Gerard's comments. First of all, the bond election, the bond election was only defeated by 40 votes. And I have to believe that had someone not put out literature that had the wrong election date on it, it would have passed by those 40 votes, because in my office alone, we took several calls the day that was misprinted on the literature, asking where they went to vote, where they were supposed to go to vote. So if we had a fair election, And I'm going to say it was just a mistake that they printed it with the wrong date on it. If it were a truly fair election with correct information, I don't know if it would have passed or not. I don't know.
So I'm curious.
But I'm just saying there were.
I just don't want to get too far off track. I mean, we do have the order calling on the agenda. And I think that the biggest thing tonight is to decide if we're gonna proceed, and if so, what the number is.
So Davis, I think the question was asked specifically to me. I'd like to respond.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't ask you a question.
You specifically.
I didn't ask you a question. I made a statement. I didn't ask you a
listen
question.
to the recording. You said specifically to me, so.
I didn't ask you a question.
Well, I didn't distribute that information, so please, I'm not sure why you even made it in the context of me at all.
I didn't say. I said the election failed by 40 votes. And if someone, and I didn't say your name, if someone had not put out literature with the wrong election date on it, nowhere in there did I have your name. So, okay. So we have 2 million. Are we still on the 2 million? We have I don't remember what Tim's was, 7.5. And Taylor, what is yours? 20 or 25 or 15 or? And I know you're not on the board, but what is the engineer recommending?
Mine is a minimum of 15 million.
Okay. Okay.
So Julie, I guess I would go ahead based on what Taylor recommended earlier. I would probably go ahead and adjust mine up from 2 million to 3.5 million, and that would cover the sanitary.
Okay, so we have 15, we have somewhere around 7.5, and we have 3.5. Okay, or 3.75, whatever. Anybody want to make a motion on any of those?
Real quick, guys, if I can just emphasize, we're talking about bond authorization, not bond sales.
Correct.
Alluding to you guys all being on the board and in the next 10 years, if we authorize $15 million, we do not have to sell it. I would love to say that we expend, using Gerard's numbers, $3.5 million in bond sales, if that's what the first bond wants to be. And I'm wrong. I don't mind admitting that I'm wrong. I just want to make sure that you guys are covered in the future as we go forward as a district. And we're working towards authorization, not actual sales of bonds. And that's a note for the general public as well. We are trying to authorize bonds, meaning that the district has the power to sell those bonds through approval based on what Davis alluded, the TCEQ, the recommendation of the attorney, the engineer, and the financial advisor, versus actually selling bonds, which would be re-presented to you guys in a finite list of what you guys wanted to sell.
Fair enough. This is Tim. I'm going to make a motion that I'll make my suggestion. I don't know if this needs to be a motion. My presentation was based on Taylor's numbers. It only got abbreviated because of a lack of time. I'm in favor of a $15 million bond. So if that needs to be a motion, so be it. If not, I'm listening to others.
I think this is a good time to poll. I would tell you that my thoughts would be anything less than 10 is a waste of time. So I would vote for anything from 10 to 15. If it's below that, I would say no, let's wait and get our act together.
I agree with the 15. I was actually going to say 15 probably wasn't enough, but.
Well, it's not based on what we had before.
Right.
Yeah, and keep in mind with mine, the 3.5 million, that's just to get us over the critical point we got for the next 2 years. And the assumption is that we will begin to do proper asset management, planning, and budgeting.
Gerard, I totally understand that, and I believe that we probably wouldn't have to sell much more than $3 or $4 million at the beginning to get it done, which is basically what you're saying.
No, no, Tom, that's,
that they're in the bank. We don't, and
No.
it doesn't draw interest. So I don't understand your reluctance to go ahead and authorize it, but that's your decision. But I guess my question would be, if we're going to do this, we need to be a united board, and we all say, yeah, we're going to do it, and we support it. But
Right.
I'm just
If-
giving you
if
my
we're-
idea. When you spend $15,000-$20,000 every time you come to an election and try to get another one, it doesn't make sense. You're the one that doesn't like to spend money, and this is the second time we've had to come up and do this. I don't want to keep doing it every other year.
so Tom, I completely understand the process with authorization and issuance. I completely understand that. Okay, that keeps getting going over. I understand that. As far as the cost of the elections, to be honest, if we spend 10,000, 20,000 maybe with legal all in order to save 50 million, I think it's money well spent to have a different election.
But you're operating on the assumption that this board's going to approve, and the TCEQ is going to approve every penny that's authorized. And that's not my intent, I know, and I don't think it's the rest of the board's intent.
Well, but the electorate via vote would authorize the board at the board's discretion to issue bonds up to that amount. Say again, I didn't understand. I thought somebody spoke.
I'm not sure we can beat this horse anymore. I think we need to go ahead and make a motion, vote on it, and get this done.
Well, the only concern I have is we're going right back down that rabbit hole.
So I make a motion that we move forward with the bond.
I lost audio.
No,
Yeah,
I think it's
I
Tim.
did too.
I'm just afraid that if we go right back down that rabbit hole of not all agreeing, we're going to end up right back in the same place.
Now, Julie,
I almost don't want to vote on it and just let it go till May.
I've done my assessment as a board member to provide oversight. This is my opinion that I'll vote on. I have compromised, basically doubled almost what I was willing to go on the bond based on what Taylor said. I think a bond any higher than that is inefficient, and I don't think that we're doing justice to our owners and people who pay the rates on a monthly basis. That's where I'm at.
Based on that, I would make the motion that we table any further discussions on a bond issue at this time.
Yep, I agree. I second that motion. All in favor?
Tom, aye.
Julie, aye.
Gerard, aye.
Okay.
We just have to hope nothing happens in the next year.
Tim, nay.
Tim voted against tabling it?
Yep.
Okay.
I can't tell you how frustrating this is. I just cannot tell you.
I think it's mutual, Tim. I think it's frustrating for all of us.
Okay, I think that is all the business.
Why do we even discuss it? Okay.
I think the meeting's over as far as I'm concerned.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
A second.
Julie, I think you're on mute.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Yeah, Tom seconded. So, yeah. All right. Tom said aye. Julie said aye. Tim said aye.
Gerard, aye.
Aye. All right. Sorry, guys.
Thank you for everybody's input.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Got to this point. Okay.